Welcome to FP Executive. I'm here today with James Strapp. He's Associate Partner with IBM Canada and an expert on the electrical industry. Thank you for joining us, James.
Glad to be here.
Great. One of the things that we've been writing about in our paper in the FP is smart grids. And the electrical grid, I think for most of us, we sort of see power lines come into our houses and we think about it when the power goes off.
Okay.
But there's been some dramatic changes in the grid itself. Could you take us through some of those changes?
Sure. Well, the changes are coming. For the most part, this industry has been pretty stable. Since we consolidated into our large provincial hydros about 7 years ago, it hasn't changed very much.
Okay.
About 10 years ago, we had the first kind of restructuring where we introduced competition into the market, where anyone could generate power, for instance.
Right.
Large consumers could buy power from whoever wanted. In certain markets, Ontario and Alberta, retail customers could buy from residential customers could buy from the supplier. That was really an ideological basis, though, right? Like that was the ideas around that were introduce markets into all industries because markets are better.
Okay.
And that with Enron and a few other lower profile debaccles, that stalled.
Okay.
That kind of changed the industry, stalled. Now we're seeing a new change to the industry.
Okay.
Now we're seeing similar kind of drivers from governments as before saying we want renewable generation in this. We want to move away from coal and other fossil fuel generation, greenhouse gas emitting generation to wind farms, solar, and those types of things. More recently, we've seen governments also say we want to create jobs in this industry through stimulus factors. We're seeing consumers saying we want a different relationship with our utility.
Okay.
We want more information about how our energy is used, where it comes from, rather than just getting a paper bill every 2 months or every month saying use this total amount of energy. Consumers are saying, well, I want to know, when did I use it? How can I change my energy use to reduce my bills?
Some have suggested that the grid is almost evolving into an information highway where there's a communication coming back and forth between the user and the supplier. You think that's the case?
Very much, because we're seeing the third thing that's really driving that is technology.
Okay.
Technology advancement. In the past, if a utility wanted to understand what was happening in their grid, they had to lay down fiber cables to a substation. They had to install a telephone line to a large industrial customer to read their meter. Now with wireless communication, they're able to install sensors along that line. They're able to install smart meters at the end of the line and read those and collect data from those as needed.
What's the practical use of that data? How's that data used?
Well, a number of different ways. One instance is the grid needs to be balanced. You need to manage whenever there's an increase in demand, people turn on their air conditioner, turn on their stoves, whatever else in large numbers, you need to balance that and increase your generation. And that's always happening in the back room in real time. There's operators who maintain this system.
Sure.
What this data does is allow that to be done at a more granular level because some of the changes in the industry we're seeing in terms of introducing things like renewable generation, which is less reliable and less predictable.
Yes, okay.
The wind dies, as cloud comes over the sun, you lose some generation.
Yes.
And we're seeing that happen at a local level too,
with
individual consumers putting solar panels on their roofs, farmers installing geothermal or wind farms, and that puts pressure on the grid in terms of now the challenge isn't managing the grid in terms of large generators sending electrons down through the transmission line to a city. It's on a local level. You've got generation coming on and off with the wind changes.
So because we have different sources of energy, we need a different way to manage how those sources are put into the whole system.
Yes, and how that system's then managed.
I see.
So being able to, first of all, being able to measure those changes and how this local system is changing, and then be able to respond to that as the next step in that.
So would a smart grid, for example, on, let's say it's a nice windy day and we have turbines generating electricity, be able to, let's say, help power down, let's say, a coal energy plant and get more energy from the wind turbines?
That's one possible answer, yes.
Okay.
That is one of the expectations of being in more renewable generation is we use coal-fired generation less.
Right.
The other is balancing on the demand side.
Okay.
So as the wind dies over a particular hour and we need more generation, is instead of just increasing generation, reducing demand.
I see.
Having consumers respond to price signals saying we need to reduce demand now. Perhaps having automated tools that take off discretionary load. Things like, well, maybe in the future, charging your electric vehicle.
I see.
It doesn't have to be done right now. Can we wait an hour? A lot better for the overall system, a lot better for your neighborhood system if we can recharge that later.
So, it sounds to me like there's a lot of change and a lot of opportunities that are emerging from this change. I think perhaps in our second part, we could explore some of those business opportunities.
Certainly.
Thank you, James.